Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be taking a deep dive into Ripple's absolutely wild year, going head-to-head with the SEC. And, just based on all the legal analysis and different accounts we've got, it seems like 2024 was really make-or-break time for Ripple, with, potentially huge ripple effects, pun intended, obviously, across the entire crypto world.
Yeah, I think what's so fascinating about this case is how it really kind of throws into sharp relief this ongoing struggle between traditional finance and, this whole new frontier of digital assets. It's really like a microcosm of all the big regulatory questions that are swirling around crypto.
Okay, so let's set the scene here. Back in early 2024, it sounds like the SEC came out swinging right.
Oh, absolutely. The first few months were just a whirlwind of legal maneuvering. The SEC was laser focused on getting their hands on Ripple's financial records, especially their statements from 2022 and 2023, as well as XRP sales contracts after that initial complaint. It was like a high stakes chess match, with both sides making these very calculated moves.
So Ripple wasn't just going to hand over their files without a fight.
Exactly. They pushed back pretty hard, claiming the records were irrelevant and just a tactic to slow things down. And this whole back and forth really set the tone for the entire year, highlighting how committed the SEC was to scrutinizing Ripple's activities.
So where did Judge Netburn land in all this?
Well, ultimately, Judge Netburn sided with the SEC, which was a pretty big early win for them. It kind of reinforced their authority and showed that they were serious about getting the information they wanted. Do you remember what your initial reaction to that was? Did you see it as like a bad sign for Ripple at the time?
Yeah, I'll be honest, I was a little nervous for them. It felt like the SEC had kind of gained the upper hand right away, but then the trial actually kicked off on April 23rd. And there was this wave of optimism. It was almost like a collective sigh of relief.
Yes, that's a great point. It was like this weight had been lifted, and now the real battle could begin. There was even talk about a potential quick settlement.
Which, knowing what we know now, seems kind of naive, huh?
Yeah, in hindsight, definitely. But you have to remember at that point, things were still pretty uncharted territory. Like legal expert Jeremy Hogan pointed out in May, things really transition into a much slower, more deliberate phase. Both sides seem to dig in, meticulously building their cases, while the entire crypto world was just waiting on the edge of their seats. For Judge Torres's decision, it was a period of massive suspense.
I can imagine. It's amazing how this one case managed to capture the attention of the whole crypto community. It really shows just how much was at stake.
Exactly. And then things got even more interesting. When the whole debate over potential fines took center stage, the SEC wasn't messing around.
Yeah, they definitely weren't. That $2
Yeah.
billion penalty they were pushing for sent shockwaves through the entire crypto space.
Absolutely. Their argument was that Ripple had essentially been running an unregistered securities offering by selling XRP, and they wanted to make an example of them. This stance really kind of crystallized the tension between the SEC's very traditional approach to financial regulation and the decentralized, often disruptive nature of cryptocurrencies.
And of course, Ripple had a very different take on things. They argued that the fine, if any, shouldn't be more than $10 million. It's wild to think about the gap between those two figures.
Yeah, a 200-fold difference. It really shows just how differently each side viewed the seriousness of Ripple's actions. It wasn't just a legal debate. It was like a philosophical clash over the very essence of crypto and its place in the existing financial system.
And to kind of back up their position, Ripple even compared their situation to the Terraform Labs case, emphasizing that, unlike that situation, they weren't facing any allegations of fraud. This strategy was really interesting to me. What did you make of it?
I thought it was pretty clever. By bringing up the Terraform Labs case, Ripple was trying to highlight the fact that they didn't have any malicious intent. They were basically saying, look, we might have made some mistakes, but we weren't trying to pull one over on anybody. This distinction was really important for their defense, and it helped them paint a more favorable picture of what happened. And then in August, it was like Judgment Day. Judge Torres finally made her ruling, and it was a real mixed bag for Ripple.
Mixed bag how? I remember when the news came out, it was hard to tell if Ripple had actually won or lost.
Yeah, exactly. Judge Torres hit Ripple with a $125 million civil penalty, but only for their institutional sales of XRP. She ruled that the programmatic sales to retail investors, the ones that happen through exchanges, those didn't violate securities laws. That distinction was a huge win for Ripple.
Okay, so maybe more like a partial victory then.
Okay.
A big fine, but nothing like that $2 billion the SEC wanted.
Exactly. And Ripple's leadership seemed to understand that. Brad Garlinghouse, the CEO, he said he respected the court's decision, and their CLO, Stuart Alderati, confirmed they'd pay the fine.
So what was the reaction like in the crypto world? Did people see it as a win for the whole industry?
Oh, it definitely shook things up. There was a sense of relief, for sure. And some people took it as a sign that maybe the tide was turning in favor of crypto companies in these battles with regulators.
But just when it seemed like things were calming down, the SEC threw another wrench in the works, right?
Yep. In October, they filed an appeal, throwing the whole case back into uncertainty. It was a bold move, showing they were really committed to this case and potentially dragging it out for years. That meant more filings, a whole new briefing process, and this cloud of uncertainty hanging over Ripple.
Were you surprised by the appeal at all?
I mean, not completely. The SEC under Gensler had been really aggressive when it came to crypto regulation. This appeal was a clear signal that they weren't going down without a fight, especially on what they saw as such a major case.
And this was all before the election, right? Did the results have any impact on things?
Well, that's where things get even more interesting. Trump's win got a lot of people excited, especially the XRP army. You know, Ripple's super dedicated fan base. Why do you think that is?
Well, if I remember correctly, during his campaign, Trump promised to replace Gensler, who had a reputation for being really tough on crypto.
You got it. Gensler had launched a bunch of lawsuits against crypto companies, including, of course, the one against Ripple. The XRP army saw Trump's win as a sign of hope, maybe a turning point for them.
And they weren't totally wrong, were they? Because Gensler ended up resigning in January.
That's right. And to make things even crazier, he was going to be replaced by Paul Atkins, who's known for being pro-crypto. The Ripple community was buzzing. Could this be the break they'd been waiting for? Or was it just another twist in this never-ending story?
What a crazy roller coaster of events, from the early legal battles to the court's decision, the appeal, and then the shakeup at the SEC. It's no wonder people were glued to every development.
It really highlights how unpredictable the crypto world is.
Yeah.
Legal battles, regulatory changes, political wins, all these things can come together to create chaos. In this case in particular, everyone was watching it, not just people invested in XRP.
Because it wasn't just about Ripple, right? The consequences were much bigger than that.
Exactly. It was seen as a potential test case for how cryptocurrencies would be regulated in the US moving forward. Everyone was looking for hints, trying to figure out what it all meant for the future of the industry.
So where did things stand at the end of 2024? Did that change in leadership at the SEC have any immediate impact on Ripple's situation?
Yeah, it felt like we were left with a real cliffhanger there. Did this whole power shift at the SEC actually change anything for Ripple right away?
Well, not exactly. I know the XRP Army was hoping for a quick win under Atkins, but things are never that simple.
So no big overnight changes.
Not really. You gotta remember, legal stuff moves slow. Especially with a case this complicated. The appeal was already happening, and a new SEC chair can't just make it disappear. Right, that makes sense. But Atkins' arrival had to at least change the vibe at the SEC.
Oh, absolutely. The tone definitely shifted. Unlike Gensler, Atkins actually believes in supporting innovation in crypto, while still making sure investors are protected. That more balanced approach definitely gave companies like Ripple some hope.
So maybe not an instant victory, but a chance for a better outcome down the road.
Yeah, possibly. You have to remember this whole saga, from the lawsuit to the appeal. It all happened while the government was still figuring out how to handle crypto. What was a clear violation in 2023 might not be so clear in 2024 or 2025.
Wow, so the rules were literally changing as the game was being played.
Exactly. And that's what makes this case so fascinating. It's not just about Ripple, it's about the whole future of crypto regulation in the US. It brings up these fundamental questions about how old financial laws apply to this brand new type of asset and how to balance innovation with protecting investors.
Sounds like we're just at the beginning of this story.
Oh, for sure. We still don't know how Ripple's battle with the SEC will end. But no matter what happens, the case has already had a huge impact. It's forced the crypto industry and regulators to really think about some tough issues.
So what's the takeaway for our listeners here? What's the big picture?
I think this deep dive shows us that the crypto world is anything but predictable. It's a space where things move incredibly fast, and the rules are constantly changing. What looked like a major setback for Ripple at one point could actually lead to clearer rules and more support from regulators down the line.
So it's not just about who wins or loses in court.
Nope, it's about the bigger conversation it starts.
Exactly.
Ripple's experience is a cautionary tale, but it also forces us to have this important dialogue. It reminds us that the future of crypto depends on finding a way for innovation and regulation to work together. And that conversation is going to keep going for years to come.
Well, we'll definitely be keeping a close eye on how this all unfolds. It's clear that Ripple's journey is far from over.
Absolutely. And who knows what's going to happen in 2025? This is just the start of something really interesting and complex. What are your thoughts on all this? What do you think are the biggest challenges for crypto in the coming year?
Those are some great questions. We'd love to hear what you all think. This deep dive has given us a lot to consider, and we encourage you to keep learning about this ever-changing world. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, keep diving.